To who?
The snap.
Snap.
Yeah,
Who's
say
this?
hi,
Who's
snap.
Snap? I want to know who's Snap.
Okay. Hi, everyone. It's Yoli. I hope you guys are having a fantastic week. It's been rough for me this week. I feel like I say that all the time, but it's just my honest truth. But lately, I've been a little more irritable, moody, in and out of like just being sad out of nowhere for no reason. Well, to other people, it looked like it's for no reason, but I realize it's the month of October, and for the past almost 4 years now, October is really like a weird month for me. So I figured I'd come on here and talk to you guys about it because talking about it helps me. So almost 4 years ago, I was pregnant with my daughter, Riley, and it was such an exciting time. Like, if anyone knows me, I have always dreamed about having kids, getting married, living the married life, the family life, or whatever. Like, that has always been me. Like, that's just something I've always dreamed about, and I've always been like, I can't wait until I have babies. I can't wait to get married. But anyway, so we found out we were pregnant with Riley April of 2018. And it was an experience. I was sick the entire time. But towards the end of my pregnancy, my dad got, he was already sick, but he just got really sick. He had cancer. He decided to do chemo. And I remember I was living in Alabama at the time. So when my husband and I got married, he was already in Alabama working, and he was trying to like find another job to come here to Georgia. But the job search was very, very long and extensive. So when we got married, I ended up moving in with him. So I would be living in Alabama, and I didn't really want to leave my job just yet because I felt like as soon as I did, he would have found a job in Georgia. So I was commuting back and forth. Back then I was full-time, and so I was driving from Alabama to my job, and I would stay at my parents' house. I would work my 3 shifts in a row, and then on the 3rd day I would leave and drive back home to Alabama to my husband. So during that time, that's when my dad started chemo, and me being a nurse, I was like, I have to be there. So we would schedule his chemo appointments on the 4th day that I would be here. So for an example, I would work Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday. His chemo appointment would be Thursday. So I would work my 3 days, and then Thursday I would go take him to his chemo appointment. After his chemo was done, that's when I would go back home to Alabama. And thank God for my husband, Ricardo, who understood why I felt like I needed to be there. Even though I was taken away from him for like 3.5 days out of the week, he understood, and he was very supportive, and I appreciated that so much. So we were doing that for a while, and then the chemo wasn't working, so he decided to do another round of chemo, which was like a stronger dose, and he just went downhill from there. So the whole time I am pregnant, okay? And come around to September, October, he declined really, really fast, where he couldn't walk, and then he was forgetting a lot of stuff, and then he was totally confused, and he wasn't eating, he wasn't drinking. And me as a nurse, like I see what's going on, and I know the signs. So you can only imagine how I was feeling the entire time. I was devastated. And in my culture, I'm Haitian, by the way. Hey! But in my culture, being Haitian, like, they get really, really paranoid with pregnant women. So it's like, okay, Yoli, we need to make sure that you're okay. Don't go crazy. Don't cry. Don't scream. And I'm just like, you guys, like, I'm having these feelings, like, whether I'm holding it in or expressing it outward, I'm still having the feelings. So a lot of people were really worried about me during my pregnancy. So October came around, and Riley was born on November 30th. So October, I was like, what, 8, 9 months pregnant? My dad had passed away. He passed, and it was funny because I had called him that same night. So I would call him every night. I was so pregnant and so tired all the time from working full time and everything. Like, I would try and go to my mom's house to spend time with him when I could, but when I couldn't, I just couldn't go anywhere because I was so huge and tired. But anyway, so the night that he passed, I had called him. I had gotten home and I called him. I wanted to go see him that night actually, but my husband was like, "You are exhausted. Let's just call him, FaceTime him, whatever. We'll go see him tomorrow." And I was like, "Okay, fine." So came home, I called him, and my brother had answered the phone. I said, "Hey, let me speak to daddy. Is he already sleeping or whatever?" And he was like, "Yeah, he's already asleep." I said, "Man, I missed him." And then he was like, "Yeah." I was like, "Okay, let me just see him." And then I can't remember exactly what I said. It's like all a blur because I had pregnancy brain and all that. So it's like all a blur. But I told him I loved him. And I think I had whispered to him what Riley's name was because we didn't tell anyone her name until after she was born. But I had told him her name. I guess my mom or my brother called Ricardo. It was like maybe 30 minutes after I had hung up the phone with him. I went to sleep with my brother. I went to sleep, and 30 minutes later, my mom calls my husband. And I don't know this at the time. I'm sleeping, and Ricardo didn't want to wake me up. So they told him or whatever. And later on is when I found out that he knew he couldn't go to sleep. Ricardo couldn't fall asleep. He didn't know what to do. He was panicking. He didn't know if he should wake me, if he shouldn't wake me. But everyone was telling him, "Don't wake her up because we don't want her to be in shock. You know, she's pregnant, this and that." So the next morning, I wake up to go pee, of course, and normally my phone is like right by my nightstand, and I always wake up, go pee, and then I check to see what time it is, so that way I can either go back to sleep or get up. So I didn't see my phone, and I'm like, okay, where's my cell phone? And I said something to him. He was like, "Oh, I don't know." And so I laid back down, and I kind of like brushed it off. I was like, okay. I didn't even think anything of it. So I laid back down, and as I'm laying down, Ricardo comes in the bed next to me, but he like lays behind me. And in my head, y'all already know what I'm thinking. I'm like, I know this man is not about to bother me right now. It's too early for this. I'm so pregnant. I'm not in the mood. But as he's laying behind me, I asked him again. I said, "Babe, do you know where my phone is?" And he was like, No, I don't know. And I was like, okay. Then my mind starts thinking, and I'm like, okay, what's really going on? So then he puts his arm around me, and he's like caressing me and stuff. And I'm like, what is going on? And then he starts singing. Ricardo starts to sing. He starts to sing hymns from the Shana Esperanza. If you're Haitian, you know what I'm talking about. But it's a hymnal book. So he starts to sing some hymns or whatever as he's rubbing my arm. And I'm like, "Babe, what is going on? What's wrong?" And then he says, he was like, "What if your dad won't be able to meet Riley when she's born?" And we had a prior conversation to that. So when he brought it up, I just thought, okay, we're just continuing our conversation. I was like, I don't know. I mean, I'm praying that he will be able to meet Riley. That's like my dream ever, for him to know my kids, love my kids, help me take care of my kids, cook for my kids, watch them eat and everything. Because I saw how he was with my brother's kids. So that's all I ever wanted. But being honest with myself, I was like, if it doesn't happen, then it don't happen, but I would hope so. And he was like, "Oh, okay. And then he was like, "Babe," I was like, "What is it, Ricardo? What is it?" And he was like, "Your dad passed away." I was like, "What?" I was like, "Stop lying." And I remember like throwing his arm off of me, and I immediately popped up. I was like, "What are you talking about?" He was like, "He passed away last night right after you went to sleep. I didn't want to wake you. Your mom had called me. They did CPR on him or whatever, and he passed away." And immediately, like, I am bawling, and I jump up and I was like, "How's my mom? How's my brother? Oh my goodness, we gotta go." And I hopped in the shower, took a shower, put my clothes on, and I rushed over there. Losing my dad was like the hardest thing I ever had to deal with. Like, if anyone knows me, I loved my dad. Like, my dad was such a great human being. Like, he cared for people so much, and I think that's where I get it from. Like, he cared and helped so many people all the time. Like, you didn't even have to beg him, he would just do it. He was such an amazing person. And he loved food. Like, I love food, my dad loved food. Like, and he was so good at cooking it too. Like, he loved to cook food. He loved he loved trying new things. Like, he was never afraid of trying new foods or whatever. He just admired it so much. And that's why now, like, when I'm cooking, like, I enjoy it because I know he would have enjoyed watching me cook, or knowing that I'm actually cooking, because I never cooked growing up. Like, that just wasn't my thing. And no one thought I could ever cook, but look at me now, right? So it was like one of the toughest times for me. And it was so confusing. Like, I was so happy to be pregnant with a child, but then I was so sad because I knew my dad was not doing well, and I knew that there was a high chance that he would not get to meet my kids. Like, it was such a weird situation. Like, I didn't know how to feel. And everyone thought I was gonna lose it and go crazy, especially after having a baby. You have postpartum depression and all that stuff. And I thank God that he knew what he was doing, because I say it all the time, like, Riley really saved me. Like, she really helped me to stay sane. Like, she really helped me to keep my cool, because she needed me. Like, having a newborn, they need you for everything. So I couldn't lose it. I couldn't go crazy. I had to keep my head level-headed in order to take care of her, to be a good mom to her. But it was tough. It was very, 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 very tough. But by God's grace, we made it through. It was very hard. After I gave birth, it even got harder. My dad passed away October 9th, and Riley was born November 30th. And so after she was born, I felt like that's when I started to grieve. Like, I started crying all the time. Like, I would just bust out crying for no reason all the time. Like, I always tell people, I was like, I think I mourned my dad after Riley was born, because after I felt like she was okay, she came out and I can see that she was okay physically, that's when all the feelings, man, all of the feelings. But it was really, really hard for me. But I am grateful for Riley, because when I look at her and I think about the time where I was pregnant, it also brings back those memories of my dad being sick and everything we had to go through, getting him in and out the car, taking him to doctor appointments and stuff. Like, I just remember all those times. So it's like a mix of emotions, but I'm okay. You know, it's, some days are hard, some days are fine. But I just figured that I would come on here and share with you guys my experience, and what it was like. I wish my dad was here today. Like, it's really hard when I'm watching the kids and they like are hitting milestones and stuff, and I'm like, man, I wish my dad was here to see this, because he just loved children. Like, the way he loved on my nephew, I was like, I can't wait to have kids so I can watch him love on them the same way. Like, that's just me. I just enjoy it. Like, I love watching their aunties interact with my kids. I love watching my mom. I love watching my brothers interact with them. It just makes me so happy. Like, it makes me so happy because they're a part of me. You know what I'm saying? So I don't know. It's been a journey. This year will be 4 years. And it doesn't feel that long at all. It feels like it happened like not too long ago, but Riley's gonna be 4 in November, so it really has been 4 years. Like, it's crazy. But yeah, if you are anything like me and you're a very emotional person and you have a lot of feelings, I would say just take a day at a time, and do your best. I mean, that's all that we really can do, is do our best. We can't really do like, that's it. Like, just do your best and just take it day by day. And by God's grace, I'm still here. I really appreciate you guys for tuning in. I appreciate you guys listening. Hopefully this wasn't a trigger for anybody, but instead it's a helpful conversation, just to know that it's okay to feel the way that you feel, to know that that if you can only just do your best, then that's enough. It's okay. And I feel like when Riley was born, she knew that. She knew. I felt like she knew. I don't know how she knew, but she knew. Like, it got so bad where I couldn't even go to church. Like, it was hard for me to go to church without crying because my dad loved the Lord so much. He was a deacon in the church. Like, he was the church. Like, it was really, really hard for me. Like, there were some Sundays, like, I just could not go and sit down in the sanctuary because I would just lose it. I would just cry for no reason. And I remember specifically one Sunday evening service. I went and I was crying. Riley was sitting on top of Ricardo's lap. And she was like maybe 6 or 7 months at this point. And I was crying and I turned and I looked at her and she looked at me and she just went, and she just looked at me, and it's like she knew that I wasn't happy. She knew that I was sad, and it just like immediately just made me smile. I was like, you see God, like Riley just helps me so much. She can get under my skin for sure. Like that one, Riley is the one that tests me. Like she gets under my skin, but at the same time, like she helps me so much. So I am like forever grateful for her. Like she's the best. So Riley, if you're watching this one day, just know that mommy loves you so much. But yeah, thank you guys so much for listening to me. Hopefully I didn't go too much on a tangent, but thank you for listening to me. Thank you for subscribing. Thank you for leaving your comments. Thank you for tuning in. I love you guys already. Like we just started this, but I love you guys already and I appreciate everything. So please continue watching and I'll see you in the next video.